Well, it's 1 o'clock, so we'll get a start. Now, we're going to be introduced by colleagues from SQA. So I'm looking to see whether Mike Gallagher or Michelle Cunningham, if you are here, could you make yourself known? I don't see them in the list. I do see Alistair Black here from SQA. Hi, Alistair. Oh, there's Michelle. Jolly good. I was just saying to folk that we're SQA colleagues from SQA are going to welcome people and set the agenda. So would you like to do that, Michelle?
that's for being late. Is that it, Paul? Yeah. Thank you everybody for joining. As Paul said, I am from SQA. I am the policy and research manager within our equalities team. So thank you everybody for joining. Paul has scheduled this session on our behalf, and we'd like to basically explore more about your experiences of using digital question papers and any other assistive technologies, and we hope this is going to be a useful and fruitful session for you to discuss and hear good practice from everybody, but we will be having opportunities for discussions later on as well. Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Fantastic. So quick question for everybody. If there's anybody that's not really used digital question papers very much, would you like a quick demonstration of what they look like on a PC so we can remind ourselves? Please say yes or no into the chat. If we do, we'll have a quick, 10 minutes at the very most.
There is a few yeses in the chat so far, Paul.
Okay, dokie. So shall I just do that first? And that reminds us, I know that there's plenty of schools where digital question papers are commonly used, but there's also plenty of schools where they're not. So we can just have a quick reminder of what they're all about, and that will maybe stimulate some questions and discussions. So I will share my screen and we'll go to so I'm hoping you can see. And
yep, that's working for me.
Yep, graphic communications. So here we have a standard SQA digital question paper. This is a question and answer format, so that where a candidate would normally handwrite on the paper, we've got answer boxes for candidates to either type or handwrite actually, or dictate their answers in. On the right hand side, the SQA desktop publishers have added bookmarks or an index, so you can quickly navigate around the paper like that. It's a digital paper, so we can make it smaller or larger. Now, obviously, if you make it too large for the screen, it's nice and easy to see, but you do end up having to scroll horizontally in order to see the full detail. On the subject of appearance, some students like, see, that's the trouble with all these things. Anybody else find that Adobe Reader or Acrobat just today decides that it's going to change the the layout? Let me just see if I can go back and tell the stupid thing to, goodness sake, tell the stupid thing to behave like the classic version. Oh, that's more like it. So graphic communication. I guess this is the kind of thing that really does make you depressed if you're just opening up your exams, on the day of the exam, and all of a sudden Adobe's decided to update itself and presented you with a brand new interface that you don't recognize. So where were we? Back to preferences.
Sorry, Paul, you need to share your screen.
Oh, sorry. Share. Windows. Graphic communication. Is that it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Jolly good. Okay, so if we wanted to change the colors on the screen, we go to Edit and to Preferences, and we go to Accessibility, replace document colors, and choose a color that you might like, and then say OK. So these are the things we can do to change the appearance of the paper. You can get rid of the bookmarks if they're in the way. And then we can scroll down, and we probably want to have, some learners want to have the text read out to them. So there are a few options here. On screen, I've got a program called Natural Reader 16. Now it's free, it's a text reader, it needs to be installed on your PC. But once it's there, it doesn't need the internet, and you can use it to read anything. So PDFs, Word files on the internet. The way it works is you select the text and you click play. First time you use it, you get a small delay. Now I've just realised, I bet you I didn't tell it to share the sound, did I?
I was going to say there was no sound there, so I didn't know if it started already, Paul.
Right, I'll stop sharing. I'll do it again. Honestly, you'd think I've done this enough. Include the computer sound this time.
You just tell us the name of that text reader again, please.
Yeah, it's called Natural Reader 16.
Thank you.
And you can get it, you can get a link to it anyway from the Call Scotland website. If you look for text readers, or just do a Google search for Natural Reader 16. It's available in quite a few local authorities. We like it because it's simple. You know, there's nothing complicated going on. You just select the text and then you have it read out.
A 3D CAD model rather than a physical model of the storage system was created during the development stage.
Did that come through for you?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, it did. It did,
Now,
yep.
Yep, under the cog, you can choose a voice. And on this computer, I've got various voices that are installed. So the voices need to be installed on the computer. They're not online. And that was Andrew, Scottish voice, or we could have Heather.
A 3D CAD model rather than a physical model of the storage system was created during the development stage.
And then there's other voices that might be on your computer. We've got the Sarah Voice ones are all the free Scottish computer voices that you can download from the Scottish Voice website. And then the Microsoft ones here will be probably installed on your PC. But you can also, you might be interested, you can also get foreign language voices from Microsoft. So here's Helena.
A 3D CAD model rather than a physical model of the storage system was created during the development stage.
So not much help to us if we're reading English, but it might be some help to you if you were reading the comprehension passage in the reading paper for French or Spanish.
Well,
A
there's a
3D
couple
CAD
of...
model rather than a physical.
Sorry?
Sorry, there's just a couple of questions in the chat, but I'll let you finish doing your demo and then I can read them out for you if you like.
Yeah, that'd be good, thanks. So that's Natural Reader. Now, Adobe does actually have its own read out loud tool, which I can activate. And then, so this is just part of Adobe Reader. Down the bottom on the screen there, it's busy loading it up and working its way out. So I'm going to click on a paragraph. And after a short delay, it should read it out. I'll just go and check the preferences. Into reading. Should be using Heather. No idea why it's not working. It did before. So that's one of the reasons why we like Natural Reader. It's much more reliable. But Read Out Loud does exist within Adobe Reader. Now, when it comes to answering the questions, the candidates would just simply type their answers in. And as you can see, the spell checker, if it's enabled, comes up. So I could right click on these words and possibly choose the word that I want. SQA will provide you with two versions of all the papers. One has got the spell check enabled and the other has got the spell check disabled. And so obviously, if a candidate had permission to use the spell check, then they would be provided with the spell check enabled paper. And if you didn't have permission to use the spell check, then it would be spell check disabled. And the only difference is that spell checker just doesn't work. You don't get the red wavy line. And if you try and use F7 to spell check like this on the spell check disabled paper, it wouldn't work at all. So that's the typing in. And you can also use text to, well, technically you can use text to speech to text dictation. So I'm going to hit the Windows key on my computer and the H letter. Another reason is because a 3D CAD model is much easier to alter, full stop. Now, I'll show you this because this is an example of the free built-in Windows dictation. It's not part of Word, it's actually part of Windows 10 or 11. And so you can use it to dictate into anything on the computer. Now, it does use the internet, and that will come on to the situation regarding security and the internet, I guess, this afternoon. But you know, as we know, a lot of learners with iPads are using Siri dictation, or on a Chromebook, it would be the Chrome dictation or the voice typing in Google Docs. And so it is possible to do this on a computer, but it does require access to that particular internet server, the Microsoft Dictate server that works here. So that's the graphic communication, and it's question and answer. And the other type of paper that you might be coming across would be the question only. So this is, for example, English, where you get the question paper on screen, and you've got an answer booklet separately. So you can have both on screen at the same time, if you've got big enough screen anyway, by tiling them vertically. So here's the answer booklet and the question paper. So we can go down and the questions are at the bottom. So we could use our text to speech wherever it's going.
Well, I think you've done it so that it's the window and we can only see the answer booklet without the question paper bit.
Okay. Aye, that's true. Can you see that now? No.
Nope, unfortunately
right.
not.
Sorry, I'll just share the screen. Share screen. No, forgot to use. Oh, it doesn't matter. You can see it now. Yes.
Yes, it's working.
Okay.
Thank you.
So on the left-hand side, we've got the question paper. On the right-hand side, we've got the answer booklet. And so by referring to two examples of word choice, explain how the writer gives a clear impression of the fast food experience. So you do have to go over to the top to read it. And then over here, we've got the digital version of the answer booklet where the candidate would write their answers in or dictate them if we can manage to get Dragon working. Now, SQA will provide you with either a PDF or you can get a PDF version of the answer booklet, but you can also get a Word version because that might be more familiar to some learners. Sorry. And so I hope that you can see both on screen.
Yep, I can see it.
And again, there's question 1 and some answers in there too. And again, we can use the dictate tool or the dictate tool that's built into Word. But again, it uses the internet. So there's a question about whether that's that will be permissible in the exam situation. So that's it, really. That's digital question papers. Change colours, make it bigger, make it smaller. Use the keyboard to navigate. I didn't mention that, but you don't need to use the mouse. All the papers are accessible just using the keyboard only. Question only papers, you require a digital answer book to use either in Word or PDF, or indeed, if you've got a word processor that you are just very used to, then you can use a word processor as well. SQA prefer you to use the digital question answer booklets that they provide, because it means that they work with automatic e-marking system. But you know, there might be a word processor that a learner can't use if they're using a very specific type of assistive technology, and that would be acceptable to use that, provided you can print it out. So we'll stop there. And
there's a few questions there,
yeah.
Paul. So the first one from Jennifer is I think it's because we moved on, I think it's referring to natural reader. Is natural reader the same as immersive reader?
No, that's a brilliant question. So immersive reader is built into Word, Microsoft Word and OneNote and Microsoft Edge. And it can only read Word files or web pages. It can't read a PDF file. So immersive reader can't use PDFs, can't read from PDFs, and so no, immersive reader is not the same as natural reader, and it just doesn't work.
Then the next question's from Angela. Would talking head work too?
I think so. I vaguely remember it from a long time ago. But basically, if you've got a text reader where you can select any text and play, then it should work. On our website, we've got a few options. So natural reader is one. There's also a thing called Orato or AT bar. You can use read and write, which many people have got. And I think the Windows talking head would work too.
Thank you, Paul. So the next question, you might need to share your screen again, from Jennifer. How did you split the screen? I think it was between the two, the question paper and the answer booklet.
So I'll hide the Word version. And where's the other one going? So this is a feature of, I'll drag it across. So they're both on the same pane, and we'll make it as big as possible. And you can either just drag them around, like manually, or you can go to Window, Tile, and either choose horizontally or vertically. So I chose vertically, Shift Control L, and it puts the two side by side. So that's just a feature of Adobe Reader. But obviously, you can manually shift them around if you wanted to. And the tile horizontal might be more suitable for, you can see less, but I guess you can make things much bigger. So, and that might be helpful for some candidates, because if you're maybe concentrating on, one particular question, then losing the clutter around of the page might be quite convenient for some people.
Thanks. That's great. Thanks, Paul. The next one is for Suze. Why does the reading, understanding, analysis and evaluation English paper not have a box under each question, as this would be easier to navigate?
Well, that's a brilliant question, isn't it? I think that's a great question to ask. So if we go back to the thing here, we can hide or minimize the answer booklet, and then we can scroll down, and there's the text. And here's the question. So why do we not have an answer book there? I'll pass that back to someone from SQA.
Thanks. I think Michelle did say it was coming my way, this question. And again, it is just to be that the question paper has been structured, again, for the length of answer that the learner may want to give. That's why there's a separate answer booklet for this set of question papers. The question has come up before. At the minute, though, it will stay as it is, with a question paper and an answer booklet for the 24 diet.
I mean, I think
Hope that helps.
Yeah, that that's the reason. The paper copy of the paper doesn't have a space, and I think that's because there's an intention not to give an indication to the candidates of the amount of the length of the answer, and so you want to allow the candidates to give as full an answer as they wish. Now, because it does have 4 marks there, you might argue that you could leave enough space for an answer that's worth 4 marks, but that's it's a separate question. It's not to do with the design of the digital question paper, it's to do with the design of the actual examination itself. Still
Thanks, Paul.
Up for discussion though, maybe.
There's another question here, I think, for Suze to answer from Helen. Is there a limit on characters per answer box?
Yeah, yes, in some of them. So that's a very good question. Let's go to one we had earlier. And I'll share my screen again. So here's a 1 mark question. State the meaning of AF. Actually, I don't even know if that's the question, but I recall that American spanners used to have AF marked on them, so I'm thinking that's what it means. Now, if I want to write more here, there's nothing stopping me. And a new line, and a new line. But as you can see, the text gets smaller and smaller. And so, and really that's what happens with the PDFs. You either have a fixed number of characters allowed, or you allow the candidate to type a little bit more, and then the text gets smaller. So when SQA and ourselves were thinking about the best solution, we decided that having a hard character limit might be a bad idea, because the candidate might like to put in another line here. Now, the fact that it's a 1 mark question, and the fact that it's got the same, on the paper copy, you'll at least be able to write 1 sentence on the paper copy. So on the digital version, you should be at least able to write the same amount of text. You can probably write more in the digital version. And this is the one above, the 2 mark question. So there's 2 reasons here. I mean, you can fit in quite a lot of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines of text. So the judgment was we can probably, that's probably going to be enough for most candidates to type their answers in. When it comes to the answer booklets, let's just go down, see what happens. Now, what's happening there is that these do have a character limit. And every time I try and put a new line in, it prevents me. And the rationale for that is that we found that, I think we found that some candidates wouldn't necessarily pay that much attention. And so they'd carry on putting in more lines of text, and the text would get smaller and smaller and smaller, which might be okay on screen when you're magnifying it, but it wouldn't be good when you print it out. So for the answer booklets, it just doesn't let you put in any more lines, and so you have to go to the next page, wherever it is, and start typing there. So it's kind of a compromise, but it's the best we can do, I think, with what PDFs are capable of doing.
I was just going to jump in there, Michelle.
Yeah.
Certain subjects do have limits on the amount of characters that can go into a box. It depends if it's deemed that the learner may wish to insert a graphic or an equation or something like that. So it depends on what we're looking for the response to be. If it's plain text, as Paul says, within the question paper, it will the text will just reduce. However, if it's something where they may want to draw or, as say, insert an equation as part of their answer, it will have a character limit. It's just the way you have to format the box to allow them to insert more than text.
Thanks for that, Suze. I was actually going to bring you in to say if there's anything else you wanted to add to what Paul said, so that's great. Thank you. There's one question here from Cindy. I think that's one for me. A bigger screen would help. So larger screen device, or is it possible to have two devices? It's really up to your centre what you're able to provide, and as long as that's what the learner is used to using and you're following our ICT security requirements, there's no concerns with either option. It's entirely up to your school. There's some comments there, and then there's one here, another one for Paul. Are Sarah Voices free for independent schools?
I'm afraid not. The licence is for the Scottish public sector, so it is for universities, schools and patients within the NHS, but the licence doesn't cover the independent sector.
Thank you. One from Jackie, is Ivona Mini Reader as good as Natural Reader?
Yes, we think so. It's smaller, so it's slightly more, difficult to see and to operate. The main reason why you might not want to put it on your computers is because it's no longer an official product. So you can still download it from, software download websites, but it's not been maintained or updated since 2014, I think, which is when Amazon bought Ivona. Ivona were a Polish voice company, and I think you'll find that a lot of the some of the Amazon, is that right? Was it Amazon bought? Anyway, it doesn't exist anymore. It's not supported, and so some technicians might be unhappy with having it installed on their computers because it's not, an official supported product anymore. But in terms of function, it's just the same. Select your text, click play, and it should work.
Thank you. I've been trying to make sure that I go through each of the chat questions one at a time, so hopefully I've not missed anybody. The latest one that I can see is from Karen. I may have missed this, but is there a dictation tool that we can use on digital paper that does not require internet? Sorry if you've already mentioned this.
No, good question as well. On PCs, Dragon doesn't require the internet, and on iPads, there's a new extra tool called Voice Control that you can download to the iPad, and it's dictation, and it doesn't use the internet. So yes is the answer for Windows and iPads. Now, the problem with the Dragon, of course, is it's about £450 per user. So we suspect it's not a realistic option for many schools. Now, obviously, what we want is to use the free versions. So we've got free dictation on Windows and on Chromebooks and on iPads. And the reason why we can't is because we don't want learners accessing the internet. So how can we sort out the iPads and the Chromebooks and the Windows machines so that so that candidates can't access the internet, but they can use dictation or other online tools, because increasingly, this stuff is being provided through the internet. Now, I believe that it should be possible for technicians on it using the PCs to disable everything on the computer apart from the dictation server, the Microsoft dictation server, but I don't know that for sure. I believe that the same thing might be possible for Google, but again, I don't know anybody who's tried it, and we've not really, we've just not spent the time. And on the iPad, I mean, we know that you can use, say, Meraki or Lightspeed, one of the MDMs, because we use Meraki here. So we can use Meraki to disable everything on our iPads apart from the dictation. Or on an iPad, you can use guided access to lock yourself into Claro PDF or PDF Expert, and the dictation will still work, but the candidate can't get out of the app that you're using to access the digital paper. So it's not a simple answer, but it is possible to do that. I don't know, does that answer the question, Karen? Oh, Tim Butterworth, I think, is maybe saying specific firewall policies should allow that. Yeah, I think so. It's just I've not managed to. And somebody else saying, would it be possible to use kiosk mode? Well, I believe so. Yeah, if you've got Google Admin Console, then I think you can set up a Chromebook and turn off the things that you're not allowed to use, maybe like spell check. But just whitelist the services that you can use. I'm not sure about Google voice typing because it depends on whether you can isolate the voice typing facility from the other Google facilities, i.e. asking Google to search the internet for you. And Craig Montgomery saying, comment about locking down word speech recognition. That's what we do to allow access and works fine. Well, I think we need to, this is why these sessions are so good, because we think that these things are possible, and then you find that somebody's already done it. Fantastic. So if it's okay, I will follow up with Craig and Tim and anyone else that's see that they've found the solution.
Just moving back up to the list of questions, Helen's asked, if the pupil needs large print, say 36 font, how would this work? Question in relation to character limits. I know the answer to this, but I'm going to leave it to Paul and Suze.
Oh,
so I'm not talking all the time.
We've heard enough from me. Must be somebody else's.
Do you want to take this one, Suze?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I was going to raise now, obviously, if you request an adapted question paper, so 36 point, again, Paul, you can jump in if you want to, but if we have a 36 point adapted question paper, we don't adapt the digital question paper, so the digital question paper reflects the mainstream paper. So if your learner does request a 36 point adaptation, so they receive a hard copy, we would suggest that they use the answer booklet to answer, or I think that's the only way. Paul, I don't know if you want to jump into that one.
I'm not sure what you mean, Helen. Are you saying if we had a...
So if the candidate gets a 36 point paper, which would obviously be an adaptation, which SQ would dispatch, but it would be dispatched in hard copy if the learner was then to use a digital with it. If it was an adaptation of an English paper per se that has line references, the line references would not match your 36 point adapted paper also.
I wonder if I'm maybe reading Helen's question differently, and Helen, please jump in as well if we're not understanding your question correctly. I'm reading it that the learner's probably typing in 36 font and they're worried about how that would fit in the answer boxes.
Yeah, that's what I was just in relation to what you'd said, is it gets shrinking the more that you write, the more lines. If you're looking back, it's getting smaller and smaller, so you wouldn't be able to read back your answer. So potentially, yeah, it's probably not the way forward for them to use that type of paper.
Right. Well, I guess on the answer booklet.
Yeah.
Where are we? On the answer booklets, I think the font size is fixed. So the only way to make it bigger on the PDF is to actually enlarge the font size to the size you want.
Okay.
In which case, in fact, shall we just check that? So
they're set to 11 point text.
Yeah. So here's the answer booklet, and for someone who required a huge font size, you can obviously make it large, but you've still effectively got the same number of lines of text. It's just that the whole paper is bigger.
No, it's perfect. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and I think if you're using a Word file, I mean, with a Word file, of course, you can use immersive reader should you wish.
There's also, I think, on the home tab, Paul, you could still see the font size. So does that mean you'd be able to change the font size in the Word answer booklet?
Yeah, I guess so. So you could select all. This will make a terrible mess of the file. And it doesn't work too well because the answer booklet is laid out using tables. So enter the question number before, so it's possible to do that, but probably not recommended.
I think in this instance, we're also suggesting to use the zoom function rather than enlarging the text size in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the really, oops. I think the trick would be to, use zoom or magnification rather than. Just by the way, Immersive Reader doesn't make a very good job of the front page. So if I switch it back to ordinary, that's what it should look like. But you go to Immersive Reader and it messes it up. There are reasons for that, to do with that, just by the way, because this is a particular irritation of mine. It is possible to have an answer booklet like this. That works with Immersive Reader. And you will see with this one, as you make it bigger, things are much more sensible. So that's, I think, something on the to-do list to get this kind of accessibility into answer booklets. Because you'll also find the same thing with Google Docs. If you open up a Word digital answer book in Google Docs, then the front page falls apart as well.
Thanks, Paul. A question from Mrs. Wood. Is read and write text help, which is being trialled by several Scottish authorities, an option? It has an exam mode. So as far as I am aware, anyway, from years when I used to work in the assessment arrangement team, that has been used for many years by some centres, so we have no issues with that. We are going to come to that later on in the point in the work that Paul and I have been doing in tandem. So we'll touch on that point a little bit further, but yeah, we are aware that schools are using read and write from text help, and that is okay. Is there anything else you want to add to that as well, Paul?
It's just that there's two versions of read and write, as you know. So there's read and write for Windows, which is the program that's installed on the PC, and it's, as you say, got an exam mode where you can lock down, you can disable spell check and word prediction and things that you're not allowed to use, and enable, say, dictation. And then there's read and write for Google Chrome, which is, you can either use that on Google Chrome on a PC or on a Chromebook. But they're actually slightly different products, and I don't know if Google Chrome read and write has actually got an exam mode. And then there's a Text Help's Orbit Note, which is specifically designed for PDFs, and it has got an exam mode, but it's not quite finished yet. And one of the things it lacks at this moment in time is spell check. So some schools and colleagues in Midlothian and Highland had a look at Orbit Note. But at the moment, it's not really satisfactory for exams on Chromebooks because it doesn't have a spell check function. And obviously, spell checking is something that's very important for some of our candidates. So Text Help say that they're working on it, but as far as I'm aware, the latest version of Orbit Note isn't out yet. Read and write is for, on a Chromebook, read and write is for Google Docs and the internet. It's not so clever with PDFs. So Orbit Note is Text Help's PDF and digital exam paper product, which is not quite finished. That's kind of complicated.
Thank you, Paul. There's one question here from Rudy. I think that might be one you might be happy to explore further with Rudy. Paul, would it be possible to use kiosk mode to allow controlled access to the internet to support speech to text? Again, we'll come to that later on about the work, but I'm just thinking that might be useful for you to, might be great to link up with Rudy there.
Yep.
Question for SQA, what we're allowed to relax in terms of internet access. We're going to come to that again later on. Monitor size, does this SQA specify a minimum screen size? Because of the different types of devices that are being used, we don't specify a minimum screen screen size, but what we do say is, again, make sure the learner is used to using it so that they're not disadvantaged by, you know, having a screen that's too small or a screen that's too big, and they're not used to navigating the size of text, or, you know, how big the windows are, or whatever the size of the windows on the day of the exam. Possibly one for you, Paul. Another question from Jennifer: is Natural Reader 16 any better?
Than what, Jennifer?
Can you remember what it was? Can you hear me?
Yes.
It was to do with, I can't even remember now. I can't even remember. It was, I can't remember. I'll try and work it out from my notes and get back to you. I'm sorry. We're getting so much information thrown at us.
Yeah, I know. And it is complicated because, you know, we've got Windows and PCs and Chromebooks and laptops. And, you know, for example, Natural Reader is available as a Chromebook extension and also as an iPad app. But if you get it, it doesn't work like Natural Reader on the PC. No. So when people talk about Natural Reader, unfortunately, you need to bear in mind what we're actually meaning. Natural Reader on Chrome lets you open up a digital paper, but you can't type any answers in. And Natural Reader on the iPad is a PDF reader. You could open PDFs up on the iPad, but I don't think you could just read them. You can't add any answers in. So Natural Reader on the PC is the one that lets you select exactly what you want to read and then click play. And that's why we think it's quite good.
Yeah. Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Jennifer. I think I was trying to make sure I didn't miss any questions, and I think I didn't help with you forgetting about what it was in relation to. That looks like all. I think hopefully I've read out all the questions that's been asked. I don't see any more questions in the chat, Paul, so we can move on to the next item if you'd like.
Okay, well, thanks very much. That's turned out to be almost perfect timing because we'd set aside about half an hour for this. So the next part, we thought we would hear from some updates from SQA about the last year's and also this year's exams. So over to our colleagues from SQA.
Yeah, sorry, that's me, but I am not prepared for bringing up the stats in case anybody was interested in seeing the 2023 assessment arrangement figures. So I am bringing that up, but basically what I thought would be useful, as a couple of you have asked in the chat, is about the stance that SQA has in terms of where we are with, you know, particular functions on ICT and internet access and whatnot. Some of you might be aware that we've been we issued a survey back in 2022 to ask all centres to give us information about what devices you use. You know, how do you secure them for assessments, and, you know, have there been any particular challenges that you're experiencing? So that survey was basically used to sort of inform further work that we are carrying out at the moment. I'm not sure if there's anybody on the call that I've already spoken to, but basically work that I've been leading on that respect is speaking to centres. I've been either visiting centres in person or having done virtual meetings with colleges and schools across Scotland, trying to get as representative as possible, a geographical representation of the types of centres, the different sizes and whatnot as possible, to understand, you know, what devices are being used, what are the numbers of learners using ICT in assessments, whether in class as an assessment arrangement or who just prefer to type, what are the challenges, you know, how are schools and some learners that I've been speaking to finding that whole process. So that is research that I'm still working on just now. In tandem to that, Paul has been working very closely with us, and Paul will come to that later on, so I won't talk too much about that, but, you know, we have been working on looking at Chromebooks and iPads, because we know that the guidance that we have is more in relation to Windows devices, but since COVID, as many of you will know, learners have been using iPads and Chromebooks because, depending on the local authority, that might work better for how learners learn, and, you know, the type of restrictions and the type of apps that you need. So that is ongoing work, but, you know, we will update you with anything in terms of the work that we do in that respect. And yeah, that's as much as I can really tell you just now. If you're interested in the number of assessment arrangement requests, the reason why we're also looking at this alongside this next project that I'm going to tell you about is we are conscious that obviously the number of assessment arrangement requests, including the use of ICT with and without spell check and digital question papers, has been going up year on year. It might seem like, you know, with the 2022 figures compared to 2019, it looks like a massive jump. But when you sort of think about the fact that we didn't have exams for a couple of years, when you break down the average, it is a steady increase. But we are conscious, obviously, that more learners are going to need various assessment arrangements, as we said, including ICT. So we're looking at that just now, just to see what we can do as SQA to support yourselves as centres, but also parents, carers and learners as well. So I'll let Paul talk about the project that he's working on later on. In terms of the assessment arrangements research, again, you might have been contacted, you might have you might be aware that we recently, it was in the summer last year, August last year, we issued out a survey to all centres, parents and carers and learners as well, basically because we want to understand how the process works for you. That goes from identifying that a learner has a need for assessment arrangements or not, to the process of agreeing assessment arrangements, putting them in place, communications, all that kind of thing, including the quality assurance visit. So all that was being covered in the surveys, and we held focus groups with centres and local authority staff, and we've been conducting interviews with parents and carers and learners as well. So that work is ongoing. We're still in the middle of analysing the data. What we will do with that information is we will be using that to provide SQA staff with information about what everybody's saying has been working well, what's not been working well, to allow us, where possible, to identify short and medium term actions really. And as you know, because we're undergoing education reform, there will be a new qualifications body in place, and that means that where we aren't able to take any longer term actions, we will be making those recommendations to say this is what the new qualifications body needs to look at. So again, the intention is once we've done that, we will publish the information. You'll get an update as to what's going to be happening with that. So sorry, there's a question there from Cindy. Technically speaking, laptops are as allowable as Chrome and iPads. So technically, yes. At the moment, though, you will need to make sure that that adheres to our ICT security requirements. You may be aware that we had put out communications to SQA coordinators to say basically that our stance in terms of the ICT security requirements hasn't changed for the 2024 diet, but that is what we're reviewing at the moment. We can't enforce any changes just now, only because we felt that with the timescales that we had to notify centres of the change, it wasn't going to give you enough time to do the preparation work. So that's where the work that Paul and I are doing come in. We're hoping to get that concluded as quickly as we can, while obviously making sure that we're doing the research in the right way. But we want to make sure that we're also communicating with you as well in plenty of time, so you can make sure that the devices are suitable for assessment purposes. Yeah, thanks for that, Paul. Any device can be used provided it's secure, accessible for learners and practical. And yeah, as long as it meets our ICT security requirements, that would be absolutely fine. And sorry if I forgot to mention this, but yeah, depending on what we get out of the two research projects that we're doing in terms of ICT, the security requirements will be reviewed as part of that as well to determine what changes are needed if there are any. Hope that helps, but if there's any questions from that, please do put your hand up or put it in the chat and I'm happy to answer that. I think that's me. Let me know if I've missed anything off, Paul, before I hand over to Suze for the digital question paper. Is it the digital question paper delivery update?
Okay, just to go over, Michelle, or are you finished with your updates? Will I just come in?
Yeah,
briefly,
I think. Sorry, hold on. There's a notification coming. Yeah, so I can't see anything in the chat. So unless anybody wants to speak up, Suze, then please start whenever you're ready. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Okay. Mine is just a just a general update on where we are with delivery of digital question papers electronically. Your centre may or may not have access to CD drives anymore, and we do deliver our digital question papers on CDs. However, there is an assessment materials electronic delivery, which is a way to receive your digital question papers the day before the exam and allow you to download them, hold them securely until an hour prior to the exam as you would. So if MD would be interested, I'm not sure if MD on the call has trialed this in the past, but if your centre would like to be part of this, if you send an email to qpdelivery@sqa.org.uk, we will add you to this and get you signed up to this service, where we have 2 nominated users within the centre who can access and download these files and, as I say, store them securely. I'll put the email address into the chat just so you've got it, and also again just a reminder that the assessment arrangements system closes on the 31st of January, so if you haven't got any of your assessment arrangements in or your digital request, then please do so by the 31st. Thanks, Michelle. I see you've just added it to the chat.
Is that right, Sue? So QP delivery, is it QP.delivery? I've just put QP.
It's qpdelivery@sqa.org.uk.
Okay, that's
great. It's not QP. That's perfect.
And Paul's just put in there, is it going to be on the SQA website as well?
Pardon?
Paul's just asked, maybe also on the SQA website, is there anything going to be mentioned on the SQA website about this?
It goes out in SQA Secure, SQA News, and also goes out in the coordinator updates. I can certainly take a note, Paul, and see if it's something that we think should be advertised on the SQA website. So originally it's under, if you do not have CD drives in your centre, that you would use this service.
Thanks, Suze. A question from Kathy. If we, oops, sorry, hold on, it's jumped up a little bit. If we request digital question papers for a candidate, are we obligated to have the candidate use them on the day of their exam?
No. The learner has the option still to be able to use their digital question paper or their mainstream printed question paper. It's up to the learner on the day.
Yeah.
Sorry, Michelle, you go.
No, I'll let you finish. It was just to reinforce. It was just to reinforce what Suze has said, Kathy, that basically we also reinforce this in the Invigilator's Handbook, that basically the centre's role is just to make sure that the assessment arrangement is provided, but it is the learner's decision on the day of the exam if they want to use it for all of the exam or part of it or not at all. That's up to the learner to decide on the day. Jackie says, why do we not get a digital paper for every exam and then we can tick it for pupils at the March deadline?
Sorry, are you looking for me to respond to that one, Michelle? I didn't actually hear you there.
Yeah, sorry, Suze. It's a question from Jackie. Why do we not get a digital question paper for every exam and then we can tick it for pupils at the March deadline? So it's
again,
basically
it has to be an assessment arrangement which goes through by the 31st of January, and again you would have to have it per learner, not just per exam that's been sat. I don't know if you want to come in there as well, Michelle, but yeah, it's an assessment arrangement, a digital question paper.
Yeah, I think at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong here, Suze, but it's at the moment, because it is a digital assessment, it's an assessment arrangement. Sorry, the digital question paper is an assessment arrangement because of the way that it takes to produce and quality assure them. So we don't have the option at the moment of doing that, but yeah, that is going to remain a digital. The digital question paper, sorry, is an assessment arrangement. It's still going to be an assessment arrangement at the moment. Cindy, I'm not really sure about that question. Is there any progress in relation to electronic access, i.e. candidates access online? Is that to the question paper itself, or I'm not really sure.
Yeah, the question paper itself.
We're not there at the moment. We are still doing work on it, but there is no work at the moment. I think Alistair from SQ, I don't know if you want to jump in at this point and are able to offer any sort of.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the sort of general digital assessment in the NQ exam diet, then we're at the initial stages of looking to pilot that, but it certainly won't be for the 2024 diet. 2025 is probably the earliest, but we'll certainly obviously be in touch with centres if there's any movement in that space, but it's very early stages at the moment.
Thanks, Alistair. One for you, Suze. I think this is, sorry, it's because of the lag with trying to answer the questions. Hopefully this is what you're meaning, Mrs. Robertson. If we already get them digitally, so I imagine, Suze, that's part of the pilot for the electronic delivery of digital question papers.
It was, yeah. So
do we
if
need to
you
sign
did,
up again?
You would need to sign up on a yearly basis. I was just going to, I saw the question there and I was just going to put a like against it. Yes, you do have to sign up on a yearly basis, and columns have gone out and they will be coming out again, just to say you took part in the last year's. Would you still like to receive them in the same way this year? So that will come out really quickly.
Thanks, Suze. A couple of comments there from Jennifer and Angela about the 31st of January deadline for adapted and digital papers. That it's too early for learners to know what's best for them, but also there's still some doubt about levels of entry, pardon me. What we say to that is, because of the number, as you can imagine, we do support all centres across Scotland and providing adapted and digital papers for learners across Scotland. So because of the sheer volume of the requests that Suze and her teams receives, it's to allow colleagues time to produce each of those adapted and digital papers, because they are produced manually. So the thing I would say about in terms of what learners need and in terms of the levels of entry, it should reflect what they're used to using, but also remembering that, you know, once you put the request in, and we wouldn't encourage this, obviously, we would say that because you'd be looking at what a learner needs from when they start the academic year, hopefully that would give them give yourself and the learners enough time to explore what kind of adapted and digital papers you would need for them. And in case this has been you know, there's a misunderstanding of the date. This is literally the 31st of January date is only for adapted and digital papers. If there's any other assessment arrangements that you need for your learner, that deadline date is March. But the other thing as well that Angela had mentioned about the levels of entry, once you've submitted that request onto the AER system, it is possible for you to change the level later on, but we would obviously advise, again, because it is a manual process to produce the adapted and digital papers by our NQ assessment colleagues, if you can let us know via the AER system as soon as possible, it would make sure that colleagues aren't producing a question paper that's no longer needed, and give them time to quickly produce the one that is needed for your learner. So hopefully that helps.
There is a question in the chat, Michelle. I think Mike's just highlighted it about this 60-minute download. So if you are on the AMED Assessment Materials Electronic Delivery, you do get the files 24 hours prior to the exam starting, which is then we would ask you to hold them secure as you would do with the CD, and then you can take them out an hour prior to the exam starting. So sorry if we missed that question. I see Mike, a colleague's just highlighted it, so hopefully that helps.
Thanks, Sue. Sorry, I think just for the benefit of the recording, because people that are viewing the recording won't be able to see the chat, would you be able to repeat what the question was?
Sorry, I've not actually seen the question, so let me just go back and find it. Or Mike, if you've got it on your screen, could you?
Is it the comment about a lot of work needs to be done by centres in an hour to all children who need electronic papers, maybe?
Time did that come in, Michelle? What timestamp
Yes, that's
is
the
it?
one, Michelle.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, I think if there's no other questions for us, that's our updates. But of course, if there's any other questions that you want to ask, then please feel free to put it in the chat, or we can speak about it at the end of the session. But otherwise, we'll pass on to you, Paul, for the next bit.
Thanks very much indeed. I do actually have a question for the group, which is, could you let us know either now or at the end of, or as we go through the rest of this, the time, about whether this is helpful, you know, this session that we've got this afternoon, and also what else might be helpful to help you make the most of the digital question papers, because and technology and exam. So because we used to run them in person in the autumn, and I'm thinking it probably would be helpful to do the very same thing as this, maybe, but like a lot earlier in the term, September perhaps, start of September next term, because it's quite easy for us to set it up and just go through the things and answer the people's questions. Right. So
lots of comments there saying it's very helpful and it's a great session.
No, have it in prelims, yes.
Yeah, like you said as well earlier in the year, Paul.
Yep. Right. Well, we thought it might be helpful to have a think about what the options are on Chromebooks. So if you give me a minute, I'll try and connect my Chromebook to my computer, and we can. And it will take me a minute or two.
I'll make a note of this as well, Paul. There's a comment there from Rachel. Though I have worked with digital papers for many years, a refresher and more up-to-date information for my new school would be great.
Right. So I'm busy trying to connect my Chromebook.
Suze, while Paul's doing that, there's a question there from Helen. Is there a reason why you can't request a large print version of the digital paper?
The only digital that we offer is a digital of the mainstream paper. It's due to the significant amount of adapted question papers that we create to have the ability also to digitise these and make them fully digital, as Michelle has highlighted. The closing date for any adaptions or digitals is the 31st of January to allow current figures for mainstream digitals and any adaptions to be created. So at the minute, the only version of the digital paper that is available is the mainstream, a direct replica of the mainstream with an adapted paper printed and delivered for the learner. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Sorry about this, folks. Ruti?
Another follow-up question is, do you think this will change?
It's certainly something for consideration going forwards. Certainly we will look into it. I see for the current 24 diet at the minute, the only one that is available is the replica of the mainstream paper.
Thanks, Helen.
Okie dokie.
Thanks, Helen.
So we have a this is a Chromebook screen. And as you can see, we've got digital question paper up on it. And the app I'm using here is called Cami, which is free. And it's okay for digital question papers. It comes in a free version and a premium version, subscription. And it's a bit like Adobe Reader on the PC. So you can do the things that you might expect to do. You can make things bigger. And it's got answer boxes into which you can type your answers. Now, one of the things about the answer boxes, which isn't good, is that they're transparent. And that means that you can see that horizontal line there underneath. And if you had a question with a lot of horizontal lines, then they would show through. And also it doesn't have the red borders. But you can type in an answer to it. And you can also use the Chrome speech to text dictation. Closed loop feedback can be used. Again, we've got this question about whether that, how can we connect to the internet and allow this to be used, but not allow the candidate to browse the internet generally. Now, when it comes to the reading part of it, we can select the text and choose that button there. No, I can't. It's not that button there. No, I can't. Where's it going? Where's it going? Let me try this again.
Cami logo. Cami uploads. Rename.
Nope.
N5 and
Nope, that's not the one. You can almost sometimes use the built-in Chrome speech to text, text to speech.
draw the symbol for a thermistor.
So what I did there was I selected the text and then I pressed the spotlight key and S, and that uses the Chromebook select and speak tool. It's all right, but it can.
State the type of control that uses feedback.
It can occasionally be a wee bit difficult to control. The voice that we're using there is Heather, and it's the Android version of the Scottish Voices that you can get for Android. So if, I know this sounds unbelievably complicated, if you've got a modern Chromebook, it can run Android apps, and an Android app gives us the voice. So it is possible, technically, to open up a digital paper and have it read with a Scottish voice, and that's all you need. I mean, so Cami's free. The Scottish Voices will cost you 59p each. But if you don't have the Scottish Voices, you can just use whatever the voice is on the Chromebook. So it's kind of all right. It's not as good as the Windows experience, I don't think, but it can be done. And also with Cami, it's got some, rudimentary drawing tools that you can put in. So we've got shapes for doing some drawings. So it's a nice product, and in fact, I think some local authorities might have Cami for reading PDFs on their Chromebooks. It's pretty good. The premium version has got some extra facilities, like, for example, go back to the drawing one. We've got a ruler and a protractor and a set of compasses here. And the paid for one has also got quite a nice text reader in it somewhere. Can't see it, but it's got a better text reader. So Cami is definitely something to look at, and a good program or extension to use alongside it is Claro Read Chrome. This is free as well, and it lets you, where's the tool? Now, when I was testing this earlier on, the wretched thing didn't speak for me, but we'll try it again. So select the text, click play. Anything happening? No, I didn't think it would. But Claro Read has also got, I'm not going to demonstrate it because we've got better things to do. So I think the message is Cami is worth a look if you're looking for digital question papers. But that means that we do have to find a way to lock down the Chromebooks so that they are secure. And people have been working on this in Highland and Midlothian and Aberdeen City, and actually folk haven't managed to find a way to do it in a way that's, that means it can be done at scale. So, that's, I'll show you what we've got so far for both Chromebook and iPad in a minute, but I'll stop sharing the screen here and go back and see if we've got any questions or comments, really.
There's a couple there. I was waiting for you to stop sharing, Paul, to mention. So Debbie's asked in relation to Chromebooks, what's the best reader for digital maths papers? Would that be Equasio?
Maybe, depends on the needs of the candidate. I mean, on a maths paper, you can, type it using plain text, some expressions, but it's not great, really, is it? So you could use Equatio as a equation editor, you know, to type your equation in, and then it converts it into mathematical equation. I mean, to be honest, if I was you, or you could use Equatio, yes. But I don't know, I'll show you what I think I would do if I were you. So I'll go back to the screen. And so this is our N5 maths paper. In a minute. Now, the maths paper, of course, is question and answer. But the mathematical options for the PDFs are terrible, frankly. So I think this might be an alternative. This is the paper that I've recreated with the word equation editor. So to put in an equation, you hold down the Alt key and you press equals. And then it asks me for an equation. So I'll just type in what I think I want. Equals 5x. And it's slow. What was it? Cubed 5x. So I made a wee error there. And so f of x equals 5, etc., etc., etc. So that's just the word equation editor, and it's, you know, it's quite nice because you can relatively easily generate mathematical notation. And even if you want to just do something simple like put in pi, then you can go to the symbols at the top and hopefully find it. It's not fantastic because, you know, the menu is kind of tiny. But it does mean that you've got mathematical notation. And the other good thing about it is that if I go to view and no, I'll go to home. Yeah, so I'll select that and then I'll choose read aloud.
Take pi equals 3.14.
Did you hear?
Pi equals 3.14.
Did you hear that?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Now, this is very technical again. Read aloud is buried within Immersive Reader. Nope, that's not what I want to do. And that's what it is here. But you can also add it to the word toolbar as a separate reading thing. And so a common question is, can we get the computer to read out mathematical notation? And the answer is, well, yes, but only if you create the equations and the mathematical expressions using the word equation tool. And then the word read aloud can read it. So I don't know. I think the options for mathematics are either you just type in your best attempt at with. Now I'm going to go superscript here. No, superscript here. No, subscript. Yes, that's it. You know, so you can put in some expressions, but really, if you're wanting to do it properly, the word equation tool. Google Docs, of course, has got an equation editor as well, and you can do the same sort of thing on an iPad with the math keyboard, separate keyboard. But whether that's a practical proposition for your candidates in the exam is a separate question, because you'll have to learn how to use this thing.
Oh, sorry, just a quick question from me, but I think because I was writing my notes and I missed it. See, when you have the equation editor, it comes up on the top bar. This is probably a bit too technical. Hopefully this helps anybody else on the call who's not sure as well. The equation editor comes up as a blue tab. Do you have to add that through the developer, or the, you know, like
no,
were you in?
I don't think so. Somebody else is contributing there.
So Cindy's saying, for math with equations and words, could the candidate have a digital question paper and a paper one? Sorry, I'll go back to the first question from Cindy first, because this is about the digital and the paper question paper. So the first one, and I think this is where it's good to have issues appearing in person, Paul. It was when you were getting Heather to read. Sorry about the sound. When you were getting Heather to read the question paper, it was reading the wrong section. So I think where Cindy's coming from is, if that happens, this could obviously pose a challenge for the learner in the exam. How does the candidate navigate that?
I think that was my mistake, actually. But yes, it's the text to speech that I demonstrated there is not fantastic, and so you can use it, but I think, you know, on the Chromebook there, I think I selected the wrong thing by mistake. So I'm really just saying Kami plus. I mean, the last time I used ClaroRead Chrome, it was brilliant. But this is the nature of Chromebooks, I find. You know, you do things one week and then you do it the next week, and something's changed in the intervening period. And I think that's another, you know, that's another factor that needs to be taken into account. We kind of saw the same thing on Windows, of course, when I opened up the Adobe Acrobat the first time, and it suddenly appeared to be a slightly different layout. And that's just because it's updated itself as well. So yes, I think, Cindy, you're dead right. This is not an ideal solution at all yet.
So the follow-up question there, Paul, from Cindy, was, with equations and words, could the candidate have a digital question paper and a paper one? In respect to that, we would say that any candidate who's receiving a digital or an adapted paper, you should always be given one from the main supply as well. So the invigilators are instructed to do that as part of their invigilator instructions. It says the digital question paper for all the accessible ready and magnification function, but the paper allows quicker answering of the questions which require the worked out equation-y parts of the answer. Cindy notes how challenging and time consuming it is when you were demonstrating that.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not, I mean, these are, as you probably know, the digital question papers were first created as an alternative, you know, type of paper. And so they're digital versions of the paper, and because of that, they simply don't work very well sometimes for some activities, and it's to do with the nature of PDFs, and what you can and can't do with them, and also to do with what your apps can do on the PDFs. And on Windows, you know, Adobe Acrobat has been around for decades, and it's pretty good. You know, lets you annotate, lets you type things in. You can add your natural reader or other tools to have the stuff read out. You can change the colors. On the Chromebook, there is a Chromebook app or extension, Adobe Reader extension, but it doesn't have anything like the same functionality. And there's various other, you know, PDF readers you can get as well, but they just don't work very well. So Kami is about the best of the poor bunch. The options on iPad are better, so we can show you the options on iPad if we want, and then we could have a very quick demonstration of one of the things that might give us promise for the future.
Could we go back to, sorry, but Paul, the question that I had before was, when you moved out of the equation editor, it disappeared from the top of the taskbar. So how do you get the equation editor to appear? And then we'll move on to iPads.
Okay, I did it by either going to insert. I'll just check that. So where are we? So here's the paper here, or here's the answer booklet rather. So you can either go to insert and equation, or a quicker way of doing it is to hold the Alt key down and press the equals sign, and then it just pops the equation in. And so it's, yeah, I think I went through this paper and answered every question just to see what it was like to use. Maybe not quite. So it's possible to do it, but whether it's a practical thing, I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you're using an iPad or a device with a touchscreen, you could be using a pen or your finger to write on top as well. But I'm guessing that some of the candidates we've got, will find it difficult to use pen, and so these are other options.
Thanks, Paul. Before I move on, and Natalie Ramirez had her hand up.
Hi, I just wanted to clarify, do we get a PDF version and a Word version of the digital paper so that they can choose? So if it was a maths one, no. So if we wanted to use the Word version for a maths paper, how would we go about that? Right. What happens usually is that SQA provide. I'll go back and do it again. So we'll get rid of that. Get rid of that. This is, where's that? So this is the maths paper, paper 1, mathematics, national 5. Come on. Goodness sake. Get rid of that. Excuse me a minute while I work out why the wretched thing. That's probably why. So here's maths, and it's a question and answer format. So it's got spaces for answers. And so the very basic thing one could do is do one's best, to type things in. And if I select that, you can go to superscript, and you can change some of it. I'm not making a very good job of it. But if I look at this and then right click and go to text style, you can make things bold, italic, underlined, superscript or subscript. But you can't really put in easily, pi or other mathematical expressions. So it's not great for that. So what I did was I thought maybe we could take the paper and just use a Word file. And read the questions from the paper, but use the Word file. Sorry, too many things going on at once. And use the Word file to answer it. So this is one I prepared earlier in the usual way. But what you can get from our website, if you give me a minute, is National 5 Maths.
While you're doing that, Paul, I think I'll just read out a comment from Cindy that I'd like to address. Cindy's saying this takes quite a long time, just everything that you've been demonstrating, and it's not even answering the question, it's making it understandable for the marker to award marks. So so the question is additional time for functionality and 2 fatigue stress is presumably a given. So basically that comes back to the assessment arrangements that your learner needs. And also I know what you're saying there, Cindy, about it taking a lot of time, but I think this is all probably going to be new to yourself and to your learners. But when you think about it as well, it's almost like it really is. Picking up a new skill. So as this is where we always try and encourage centres where possible. We know resource can be a bit restricted, is allowing the learners to be able to practice as much as possible so they get used to it, and when they are used to it they will get faster. Obviously it will take time, so depending on the needs of the learner, if you need to request additional time to allow them to be able to answer the questions, then that is something that you should be thinking about too.
I mean, you're dead right. These things were not designed for this purpose. These PDFs, what we can do with PDFs was not designed for creating high stakes, important, externally assessed examinations. So we're kind of doing the best we can, I'm afraid, with the tools that we've got available. But say hopefully on the screen. So, I thought as an exercise, let's see what we can do with Word. So normally on the left-hand side, we've got the National 5 paper. Now you can't use Natural Reader to read it because Natural Reader, well, it's because the text in the PDF isn't mathematics, frankly.
Given that f, x,
it certainly doesn't help if you've got a French accent.
Given that f 10 equals 5x3, evaluate f minus 2.
So that's what happens with your average text reader when it tries to read mathematics. Here's another one.
Evaluate times 3, 5.
So it's just nonsense. So, you know, that's it. So, but I did think, well, maybe if we had a word processor as a Word file, we could use the equation editor and you could put your answer in like that. And so I created this as it's just a kind of template, really. It kind of mimics the standard SQA answer booklet. But I've just created all the equations with the equation editor so that you can use the text-to-speech if I knew how to do it.
So my question is really whether the Word document was an option for the actual exam. I understand the difference between the two. It was just, do we actually have that as an option?
Yes, I think that's what Mrs. Wood is also asking. What are the advantages of a PDF versus a Word, or vice versa for digital question papers? But for the maths question paper, and all question papers, actually, they come as a PDF document. So if it's a question answer question paper like the maths one, it will just be provided in a PDF format. Unfortunately, it's to ensure that the content of the question paper, for our own quality assurance and security purposes, we can't provide it in a Word document format. So there is no Word version of the maths question paper, but if you need to use, for example, a Word answer booklet, there is a generic Word answer booklet that you could use. And obviously, if you need to do a similar version of the answer booklet that Paul's created, I don't know. I mean, because we have very specific ways in which the cover has to look to allow us to scan the question paper, but that's certainly something we would be exploring further with Paul. But just at the moment, we just only have the generic answer booklet that you would use. If you were to use the equation editor on a Word answer booklet, you would need to use the generic digital answer booklet, I'm afraid.
But I think it would certainly be possible to, you know, have a generic Word answer booklet that was kind of set up, you know, easily for doing maths in. I mean, you could open up the SQA generic Word answer booklets, press Alt equals and carry on putting an equation in. So that's certainly a possibility, but it's not the questions. You have to read the questions from the PDF.
Thank you.
Should we look at, I'm just conscious of time, Paul,
Yep.
do you want to go to iPads next?
Yeah, so where are we? Right, drag this across to here. Now, and share the screen. So this is an iPad, and again, it's just the same question and answer paper. And this is an app called Claro PDF. So this is a free app, and it's a PDF reader. So you can make things bigger, and of course, it's a bit more easier to do if you've got fingers, and you can do the kind of pinch and zoom thing. You can take a look at the whole set of pages in the PDF and navigate around them. I like one of the reasons why Claro PDF is quite nice is you can change the background color to a suitable one. It's got the answer boxes here, so we can scroll down and go to the next question. And I was expecting it to talk to us, but I think it's going to fail. Yes. It may not like being mirrored across to the so I'll try that again. I think it's going to fail again. However, it's got text-to-speech built in, and it is going to fail again. Or you can use the, oh no, yeah, or you can use the, come on. No. What is the? Rubbish. I'll have to open a different one. Oh no, there we go. Try that again. And you can tap with your finger and type in answers.
Well, I'm wondering, there's a question there from Jennifer. I think what you're I think it's in relation to what you're demonstrating on screen just now. Would this be the iPad, sorry, connected to a keyboard?
Yes. In an exam situation, I don't think anybody would want to have the on-screen keyboard up on screen. So I would say definitely. And there's also questions about whether the iPad screen is large enough, you know, for candidates to use. And you know, when it's, I don't know about you, but if I'm trying to edit text on an iPad with touch, I find it quite difficult to, you know, put the cursor in the correct place and move things around. So you might even be saying to yourself, I need to have a mouse. Now you can plug in a USB keyboard and a USB mouse to an iPad with a wee Lightning adapter or USB-C adapter, so it's possible to do it. But you know, it's definitely extra hassle when it comes to the exam time. So you know, we can get the keyboard up on screen, and you can use the. When I'm doing it, a lot of things with iPad, I tend to have it on the floating window, and I tend to use the kind of swipey movement, and that just gives more room for the, you know, for what you're trying to view. And also you can use the Siri dictation or the voice access dictation, which, if you remember, we said earlier, is available and works offline. It's a pie chart. So that's Claro PDF, and it's just a PDF reader. You can have the English paper and the English answer booklet. I'm using an iPad here, and I'm going to answer question number 1 of the English Reading for Understanding analysis, and can't remember the third thing.
Evaluation.
Evaluation, thank you. Full stop. New paragraph. As we know, comma, computer dictation is improving all the time. And before you know it, artificial intelligence will be basically knowing what I'm about to say before I know it myself, exclamation mark. So that's Claro PDF. And
Quick
there's
question
a
from me, Paul. Sorry, it's just going back to the one where you were swiping on the keyboard. Does that use predictive text then to anticipate what you're going to type?
It can do. It's an option within the iPad.
Can that be turned off?
Yes.
Okay. And a the question here from H. Taylor, does Claro PDF encounter the same problems when reading aloud maths sum/formula? I think similar to what happened with Chromebooks, yeah.
Yeah, they all do. I mean, there's only really one easy way to read mathematical expressions or scientific expressions, and that's to have the expression created using the word equation editor, and then read back with immersive reader or words read aloud. If you use natural reader to read back the equation on Word, it doesn't work. It's just because it just doesn't work. There's a math writing language called MathML, and immersive reader is kind of a bit like MathML. Equation. Oh, actually, no. There's another way of doing it, which is if you've got Equatio, it's got a screenshot reader, so you can draw a box round the mathematical expression, and Equatio will convert the picture into text and read it to, into mathematics and read it to you. So yeah, so Equatio is available for Chrome, the Chrome browser, and also as a Windows program. So sorry, it is possible to do that, but of course Equatio costs you money. So this is Claro PDF, and it's free, and you can hear. Well, we'll have one more shot at trying to use the text-to-speech computer reader.
Using your own words as far as possible, explain why it was strange that the writer liked to play diner dash.
So did that come through the audio?
It was very quiet.
Okay, I think it's just that the sound is coming from my. I'll lean closer to the iPad, and then we can do it again.
Using your own words as far as possible, explain why it was strange that the writer liked to play diner dash.
Okay, so that's Claro PDF has got a computer reader built in where you just tap and it will read. So I'll turn it off. And now I'll select the text and I get the speak button. So this is the speech to text that's built into the iPad. I hope. Come on. You can see why people use PCs for this exercise, can't you? Because it's such a fiddle. I'm going to give up on that.
Pros and cons with every device, Paul. That's all I can say.
Well, no, but I mean, I think for an examination situation, I mean, there's quite a lot of things going on technically at the moment, but as far as I'm concerned, if it's unreliable, well, then you're not going to go anywhere near it, in an exam, because it's got to be working. You've got 20 candidates turning up, and they all need different varieties of speech to text and text to speech and colours and whatever. And like, if it's not going to be reliable, forget it. So there are two apps that we suggest. One's called Claro PDF, another one is called PDF Expert, which is also free, and it's the same sort of idea. Go away. So selecting the text, click speak.
Identify, using a tick, the correct true shape. Use a ruler or trammel to measure.
So it's exactly the same sort of idea. There's the paper. You can have different files at the top. So you can have both the question paper and the answer booklet. I forget whether you can change the colours on this, but it's a PDF reader. It's free. You can type in your answers and you can use speech to text and text to speech. I find it's a bit more reliable than Claro PDF. And once you're in this, I think I mentioned guided access earlier on. So you could set up the iPad with guided access, and that means that once the candidate is in this app, they can't get out. And so it's possibly a way to, establish security. But I do know that colleagues in Edinburgh I think particularly Timecastle, have looked at the possibility of using this kind of thing, guided access for exams, and I think they decided it just wasn't practical, or the only way to make it practical would be to actually have a complete set of exam iPads. And kind of prepare them all in advance, because if you've, as discussed, if you've only got an hour to set all these things up, to get the digital papers onto the iPads, sort them all out, and then of course you've got to print the output, so you need to get the papers off the iPads, and so logistically, technically it can be done, as we've just seen, but logistically it seems to be a bit of a challenge.
Thanks, Paul. There's a question there from Jennifer. Why would you use an app as opposed to the accessibility text-to-speech function from the iPad?
The only reason is that the Claro PDF app has got a facility called tap and speak. So if you tap on the sentence, it reads it out. So that's slightly easier for candidates than having to select the text and then click speak. But as you saw in the wee demonstration there, it didn't seem to work at first. PDF Expert and Claro PDF, they're both brilliant. And, I've had I don't think, well, neither of these apps, as far as I'm aware, is available on the iPads in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Scottish Borders. I don't understand why that is, because they're both free. There's maybe DPIA and GDPR issues, but I don't think so, because neither of them actually collect data as far as I'm aware of it. So, yeah, Cindy Chu, exactly. Well, that might be a good cue to swap over to the future. What do you think, Michelle?
Yeah, that is so part of that paper that I've been talking about is the research that we're doing. There are several parts to that. So there is the part that I'm leading on, that I'm working with Paul on, is investigating the here and now with SQA's exams. Suze and her team have been looking at if there's any improvements that we can make to the current version of the digital question paper that, as we said, is only provided in PDF format, but you do have the Word and the digital Word and PDF versions of the digital answer booklet. And something that, as you may have recognised, our colleague Alistair Black is also on this call, and one of the recommendations that we've been looking at is the move from a paper to a digital assessment, but we're not, as Alistair said, we're not there yet. So we are looking into it, just to reassure you, we are looking into it, but we just don't know when it's likely that's going to happen, unfortunately. But we will obviously keep you up to date if there is anything to share.
Okay, so I'll show you this, see what you think. So iPad option, Claro PDF or PDF Expert. Or you can use the OneDrive app, actually. It works quite well. It's not brilliant, but it's all right. There's a question, as far as I'm concerned, over whether an iPad is a suitable thing for exams anyway. I mean, it is possible to add hardware keyboards or Bluetooth keyboards and mice. But again, logistically, that could be it's another thing to have to set up. Chromebook, Cami to read the paper, Claro read Chrome, although it didn't work when I demonstrated it. Now, and of course the problem is that we've got all these students who've got Chromebooks and iPads, and they're wanting to use them in exams, and they can't because we don't have a solution. So these are the issues. The first one is security requirements. Now this is 2016 to 17, and I don't know if this has changed, but I would point out, here's the thing. No network connections other than a restricted exam network. So if you can come up with a restricted exam network that allows you to do what you want and you can guarantee it's secure, then that meets the specification. Leave you with that thought. And this is the kind of situation that we've got in the comments from teachers. They're successful with Chromebooks in class, but they can't use them for exams, mainly because of the internet requirement or lack of internet. And again, the speech to text, the dictation that we demonstrated earlier, that's online. So how can we use it? So these are the 4 principles that SQA have got. Reflect normal way of working, which is why we want iPads and Chromebooks. Tailoring to meet candidates' individual needs. And what that means, of course, we know is that in an exam situation, in the morning of English, you've got 25 candidates and 5 of them have got spell checker, 10 of them don't. It's that kind of situation. Some people can use one tool, some people can't use another. But we need to set it up so the integrity of the assessment is maintained and so that the candidate can demonstrate what they're capable of. So balancing these things up. So there are some solutions. I mentioned Orbit Note. It's only for Chromebook. And at the moment, it doesn't have a spell check. And because you've got to set it up in kiosk mode, then the feeling from people in schools is that you really need a stock of exam Chromebooks to do that. Exam.net is a product that's designed for this task. I think Cindy Chu mentioned it earlier on. It's being used for secure assessments. So I'll do a quick demo of that before we finish. And it's got an equation editor built in. It can work across all the platforms because it's just online. Pupils can use their own device. You can change the font. You can change some part of the colors, but really what you're doing is highlighting rather than actually changing the color background. You can choose fonts. It's got text-to-speech built in. You can add in audio recordings. It has got a spell checker, and you can use it. You can use a calculator and an equation editor. So it's quite good, we think. I won't bother doing that. And then we've got Trelson. It's specifically designed for Google Workspace. So if you use Google Workspace, it's good for you. If you don't, it's not. And it's very similar. On the right-hand side, we've got a question paper, a PDF question paper. On the left-hand side, we've got where the people types their answers in, and you can have a split screen, or you can have, either of them. It's got dyslexic fonts. It's got reading ruler, the line on screen, text-to-speech and speech-to-text built in, spell check, drawing, calculator, and equations. So I'll stop this and I'll show you what exam.net looks like very briefly. So this is the exam. This is me as a teacher in a school, and I'm about to I'm going to create an exam, and in this case we'll do the most common one, which is English. So I'll edit the English paper. And the first thing I've done is, I'm not going to demonstrate this live, but I can add a PDF. So I've just uploaded the SQA PDF here. And I'll go into next. And here's where I set up what the exam looks like. So I can anonymize it. I can allow students to stop and then start again if I want. And exam.net is a professional product. They've been doing this for a few years. So you've got training videos explaining what each of the features are. You can connect the exam into Google Classroom or Teams. You can ask what the student is required to put in. And of course, in the SQA situation, they're anonymized, so we don't want the student details. And then in the writing area, the whole concept of this is you've got your PDF question paper on one side and your writing area, your answer booklet in the other side. So I'll have a look and you can define the content. So in this case, I've just defined the content very simply. I've got the title, and then that's what the student will see when they start the exam. So it's really easy to create, and you can duplicate. I can use this as a template, and so I could, quickly create templates for examinations. You can have a spell checker on or off in different languages. Another thing that you can do, you can scan handwritten work with a mobile phone. So if it was a mathematics paper or anything that required physical drawing, then the student could write it and then take a snap with their phone. Now there's accessibility.
Is that option, sorry, Paul, the
secure?
mobile phone. Well, I think for our exams, we say that learners can't use mobile phones and centre staff can't as well. So I'm just wondering how that would work if it wasn't a mobile phone. How would that work for them to scan the hand? Well, I suppose they would just submit the handwritten stuff to us anyway, so we would have both. Yeah. But the mobile phone thing would probably be more for in-class stuff, isn't it? Yeah. I
don't actually know the answer to that question. So here's text-to-speech, translation, synonyms, and a dictionary. You can have audio files not appropriate in an exam. And here's the subject tools: drawing, calculator, GeoGebra, which you might have come across, good for graphs, Desmos, and programming. You can do Python programming. No, yeah, JavaScript and Python. And you can also, the student could also record an audio if that was an appropriate thing. So we've got the text to speech on for this one, I think. And then you can add different resources. So you can have more PDFs. So that could be data booklets or formula sheets. And you can even add a URL, you know, if there is some resource, not appropriate, but I suppose I'm thinking about admin, you know, for Excel files, that kind of thing. And actually, I've added a student feedback form to this, which is a Microsoft Word form, because if we were going to use this for pupils to try out, I've added a link here so that pupils can go to that form from within the exam and then give us some feedback about it. So it's pretty good. Then the cheat prevention, if you want high security mode, you can only use this if you've got the app on your iPad or on your Chromebook or a particular browser on Windows, a secure browser. Or you can allow, for practice, I've allowed any browser. And so that's really kind of basically it. So if I go back to the exam, actually no, I'll preview it first. And this is what the student will see. Now, the way to get into this is that you give the student a code, and that's all they need. And that's why I think that's why it's so good, because it's quick to set up, and it's absolutely secure as far as we're aware. And all the student needs is any old device, iPad, Chromebook, Windows, doesn't matter, and this code. And then you can look at the questions. Now, as I say, it's not absolutely fantastic in terms of accessibility, but it's certainly worth a look. And with text to speech, highlight text you would like to listen to. And then read aloud.
In 2005, when I was 16, I worked in a busy local cafe. I churned out hot beverages at...
And then down to the questions. Whatever they are. Takes a wee bit of time to refresh. And then we go to our answer place and type the answer in. Or again, we could use the Windows Dictate. I don't think this actually works if you're not connected to the internet, though. I'll just try it. What's happening here, of course, is I'm doing it in the unsecure browser. And for the examination, I would have to have this magic code. And then so you complete the exam and you submit it. And that's that. And then I go back to my exam list. And I can go to the results. And it will tell me how many have been submitted, and then you can go and look at them. That's the exam key here. And so, you know, that's all you need to give to the candidates to let them to do it. So it's definitely of interest because it's cross-platform, it's secure. What is not good, though, for is question and answer papers. So here we've got the mathematics one. And you can't type into the answer boxes or otherwise annotate the PDF. So you would have to use a separate area here with whatever the equation editor is somewhere. Well, that's it. So if we look at the first question, what was it? F of x. Oh, it's a different one. Anyway, you get the idea. Was it 5? No. Superscript. I'm clicking the wrong thing. But yeah, so that's basically it. Submit exam. Now, there are a few volunteers in different schools have been testing this, but unfortunately we've not made any progress much. And one of the main reasons apparently is because in order to use it for real, you need to have the exam.net app on your iPad. And to get an exam.net app on your iPad, they need to do a DPIA, Data Protection Impact Assessment, and nobody's done that yet. So there's a group of teachers in Borders that are very keen because they've got iPads, and also Falkirk and Glasgow. But as yet, nobody's actually done a DPIA, and that means that you can't put that app on the iPad.
I was going to say, Paul, there's a comment there from Tim. He's interested in the Secure Exam Network. It was while you were demoing exam.net. So I don't know. So Tim's asking for more information about what will and what will not be allowed. So as I said, at the moment where we're still undertaking this work, until the research part has concluded, we can't say just now what will and what won't be allowed. But I don't know if you'd be interested to, if you've got capacity, Paul, to still take on Tim as a volunteer, if you're still looking for volunteers, or is that kind of...
Well, we've kind of hit a jam because people, we had hoped, in my naivety, we spoke to exam.net and Trelson in particular, because they're, these are apparently used by, millions of assessments across the world in higher education as well. So we think they're probably pretty good. They're not quite what we want in terms of accessibility, but, I looked at them first in 2021, and they lacked some really basic things that we needed, but they've added them. So exam.net as a company actually said that they would give schools free licenses for the whole of this academic session for us to have a go. And so some people have had a shot at it, but progress, as I say, is being stymied because nobody can use them for a prelim because you can't get the secure app on the iPad. So we need to do more with that. And I think, to be honest, I think I was maybe hoping for a bit too much because everyone's so busy. So I was hoping that, teachers would be able to just create their own. But I think if we want to do this next year, we need to be far more supportive, and we need to have the whole thing set up. You saw that I've made some exams there. So what we need to do is to create a whole pile of sample exams for a very wide range of subjects, and then go directly to schools and work with them and sort it all out. And we need to do that at exam.net is definitely not free. It's a paid product. There's a couple of, and neither's Trelson, a couple of schools, Alban in private school in Aberdeen and Morrison's Academy, actually bought it during COVID for running their prelims. And other internal assessments, and so they've been using it for a few years, and they say it's extremely good. But certainly it costs money. I forget exactly how much it costs, and then there is a question about who pays for it. And I think, Jennifer's suggesting, could SQA look at it? Well, I suppose that's what we're doing at the moment, because even although it's not perfect, or there's also a possibility. We've spoken to exam.net people and said, it would be fantastic if you could change the color of the PDF, or if you could type questions in. But really, exam.net is not designed for that. Exam.net is designed so that you actually create your question papers with exam.net. So every question, is prepared within the internet. And if you do that, then it really works well. And what's more, you can create libraries of questions for people to make up their prelims. So you could have, hundreds and hundreds of maths questions, and instead of people, cutting out bits of past prelims and sticking them together, you could just be doing it in this kind of product. So as a, I think so too, Tim. I think there's definitely options here. But I'd hoped it would have moved faster, but there's, as you can tell, there's just challenges. It says, challenges for SQA, challenges especially for staff in schools to set all this up. So I really hoped by this time that we'd be saying, hey, here's a thing, this is what it costs and this is how to use it. But we're not there yet.
Can I just quickly add to what you've just said there, Paul, as well, to answer Jennifer's question about, would SQA invest in something like that? So at the moment, as we sort of been discussing, there is different types of devices that are being used, and also the versions of the devices that are being used are quite variable depending on the local authority and the school. So unfortunately, we're not in a position to say we're going to use exam.net, we're going to use Trelson or Orbit Note, and that's really up to schools, and depending on what your contract is, as Paul probably mentioned as well. We are aware, or I am aware, that some local authorities outsource the devices and the ICT to an external company. So we haven't got control over that, for example, to say, right, we're going to stick with this one and it's going to work for absolutely everybody. And this is why we're working on this project with Paul to sort of look at what are the options available to schools depending on the types of devices that are being used. But also, as we mentioned earlier, we are looking into moving towards a digital assessment platform as well, and that might not be needed in the future, but it's just, this is what we're looking at just now, so that it would work with our digital question papers. You're on mute, Paul.
I can't remember what the cost is. Money is always tight. There's no way we'd be able to afford this. Well, maybe. Ultimately cheaper if a contract is agreed. Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's what we want, isn't it? We want all the students in all the schools to have the same experience. And at the moment, you've got Windows and the PDF does one thing, and then you've got a Chromebook and it does something slightly different. And then you've got an iPad, it does something different again. So it's not where we want to be. And I think we all agree on that. Right. Do you think we're finished, Michelle?
I think so. I can't see any other questions there. I'm just having a quick skim through. Yeah, so just I suppose just to end is just to say thank you very much for everybody's contribution to this. I hope it's been useful for you. It's certainly been useful for us. And yeah, I think we're hoping to continue doing this annually, as you said earlier in the academic year, so it doesn't clash with your prelims. But as Paul said, if there's anything that you want to follow up on, then please do get in touch with Paul. But we're hoping, as we said, to move further forward with the ICT project and hopefully give you an update soon. But thank you very much for attending and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks for everybody. I mean, it is brilliant, honestly, to have comments and questions like this, because the only way we all, learn what's going on in reality is by speaking to the experts, which is all you. So thanks very much. Great. Right, we'll be in touch.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.